this last question sucks. It's so mean, and they're using so many of the SAT is using so many of its like bag of tricks to kind of get you on this one. What can we do? Well, I think the best way to do this is to play a game of one of these things is not like the other. And I guess there's kind of a pun in there too, but one of these things is not like the other, right? One of these choices is different. Even though they all look the same, we kind of need to figure out which one is the odd one out. Maybe put that on like Sesame Street back in the day. This is maybe a more grown-up way of putting it, is narrow your focus. Right, we do this in math a lot too, when we have confusing stories and equations and we're not really sure how to turn the story into something. Well, we don't think about the story, right? We look at the equation, we look at what's different, and then we see how that might fit with what we're trying to say. So the instructions here are weird. Which choice most effectively signals the comparison the writer is making between the two groups mentioned? So we're talking about people who got caught up in the excitement of a story, and then the American public may be willing to embrace a legend because of its appeal. Okay, so there's some similarity here, and they say that comparison, right? So it's a similar situation. Now let's look at these answer choices. Let's work from the bottom up. Different from, right? Well, different doesn't mean similar, so that's not great. Like, well, like means similar, but not like kind of means the same thing as different, right? They both mean they're not the same. And unlike and not like kind of mean the same thing. So what we have here is three choices that all really have the same meaning. They're all saying two things are not the same, that they're different, that they're not like each other, that they're unlike each other. There is no difference between those three choices. Now choice A is really weird, because why would we ever talk like this? Not unlike. It's a weird double negative. But the good thing about this double negative is it cancels out the negative in a way that gets us what we want. If something is not unlike, or another way to put this might be not different, then that means that it's similar. And so choice A is super weird. Our instincts would tell us to stay far away from those words. That's so strange to talk like that. But because it's different, because it's not like the other choices, it ends up being right. And hopefully by narrowing our focus and really just kind of thinking about what these words mean, we can notice something that our brain really does not want us to notice. Our brain, I think my brain at least here, really wants me to not pick A. It just sounds stupid, it's weird, there's something about it that is repelling me away from that choice. And so then, maybe you drift into some of these other choices that at least have phrases that are more familiar to you, but we can't just do that, right? We have to think about what these things are saying, focus on the ideas that they're trying to get across, compare those ideas, and we notice that B, C, and D are literally saying the exact same thing. And that A, even if it's weird, is at least different. And that's why we can pick it. That's playing the game of the SAT, right? If I were saying the sentence, I would just say, the researchers also suggest that, just like people who got caught up in the excitement of the story when reading about it in the newspaper, the American public may have been willing to embrace the legend because of its appeal to the imagination. I would say what I want to say. I want to say things are similar. I would use words that just mean that without this weird backdoor way of getting that meaning across. But I'm not writing the passage. I am dealing with the choices that the writer already made, and so A is the one I have to settle for. This is really good. It's a really good one to end the section on, because I think it really gets to the core of what we're up against on the SAT, is that our instincts, while sometimes helpful, are not always reliable or cannot always be used to get some of these harder questions right. In fact, the SAT, in this case, designed a question that messed with our instincts, that went against what we thought was going to happen. And that's why our instincts are not always going to be reliable, is the SAT is using our instincts against us. And the more that we can play the games and really look at what they're asking, the more we can memorize the rules, the less we'll have to rely on our instincts, and the more we'll be able to prove our answers and get the points right that they want us to kind of make mistakes on. Really good question, really tough writing section, so if you didn't do as well in this one as you normally do, I wouldn't stress over it. But from a tutor's perspective, there's a lot of good stuff in here. So this might be one to come back to and review as you get closer to the test and have some hard questions you want to revisit.